Well, good morning, everybody. Are you ready for another meeting? Say yes, will you please? Yes, good, that's what I wanted. Well, welcome to the April 10th meeting of the all residents meeting. We've got a nice morning for you, I think, with a lot of good information. And I want to start this morning, before we go to the agenda, to kind of recognize a couple people, if we can open on that note. Last month we did lose a couple of people here. We've mentioned them at the council meeting. Jim Bell and Dwight Semple. Probably Dwight's the best known one that took care of the Sable Point Community Services Association for a number of years for us. But I'm also now knowledgeable that Linda Mayer passed away, and her poster is out front, so we'll remember her as well. But I want to shift gears if I can right now, because we're also losing a couple of long-term residents, one of which is here. I couldn't see the other, but one of which is here, that have made major contributions to Village on the Green and our resident organization. And yes, Mary Ellen Buckholz, I'm mentioning you. And I can't think of anybody that I look at as a greater witness how many days have all of us seen Mary Ellen pushing Bill around this community before he passed on. So you were a real witness, Mary Ellen. We know your family's migrating to San Diego, but somebody's got to go there, so I guess it's you. We wish you well. And I was also hoping that Sandy Santini might be here, because Sandy served as secretary a couple times for me with the finance committee and other positions. So, and including culinary. She was culinary chair for a while. So the both those ladies will be missed here at Village on the Green, and we thank you for your contributions very much. Okay.
Believe me, everyone here is going to be missed too, that's for sure. You're all dear to my heart.
This meeting, most of us will have to pay a lot of attention to, because Joey was unable to get to the council meeting last week. He was gone. So we're going to watch his report carefully when he takes the mic in just a minute. But I wanted to mention a couple things to you before Joey takes the mic. First thing is that some of you know that I was able to meet, Joey and I met with our COO, our Chief Operating Officer, on April 30. We had a session, and as far as any follow-on information about our letter that we sent to the Life Space Communities, Inc., all we know is that the response is underway. We were promised that, but we really didn't get any more insight that I can share with you at this point. But we did have that meeting. And since then, we also had the resident council meeting, and I'll share those highlights with you a little bit later after Joey concludes. But with that, let's give Joey the floor and let him run through his report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Coming in loud and clear in the back? Okay, good. Good to see you all. So as always, the same slide stays there, right? That's kind of our guiding principles. So when I get with the leadership team, we want to make sure that we're focusing on our 4 key objectives and the various metrics within that. Right now is kind of an exciting time for this, because for a team member perspective, we're starting to get the results back from our most recent engagement survey. So we're working through that. We're going to touch on it in a moment, but the resident survey is underway. And then always keeping that eye on occupancy and financial, which I'll give you a little updates on here. So financial for February. Now, what I'll actually kind of qualify is our finance team has done a lot of hard work to shorten the cycle that it takes after the end of the month to produce financials. So I actually have our preliminary March financials, which if they kind of keep this up, I may be pulling a fast one on you and squeezing in 2 months, so then we're a little bit more timely, you know, so that theoretically I could be talking about March today instead of talking about February, because frankly, when I get to this meeting, I'm starting to forget about February and worry about March. So these numbers are for February. If you recall, January was a bit of a bumpy month for us, and February started to see a little bit of a turn on the corner there. From a revenue perspective, assisted living, home health, and skilled nursing, we're kind of carrying our buckets there. And skilled nursing, especially, I'll just share a sneak peek into March. Skilled nursing is doing so well from an occupancy and also from a payer perspective that they're really generating some pretty big numbers for us. That's covering for some of our soft spot in the independent living side on the revenue perspective. So we were pretty much on target with our revenue figures as compared to the budget expectations. And that is with the softness in independent living being kind of made up by skilled nursing and by home health, which continues to kind of rock and roll there. From an expense perspective, as always, you start generating some more revenue in skilled nursing, your expenses go along with it, especially when we're pushing Medicare Part A reimbursement. We want to make sure we're getting all of our services provided reimbursed. All those, Medicare provides you a lump sum for the day, and you have to pay for all the medications, labs, x-rays, transportation. It's all kind of an inclusive rate. So as our census on Medicare Part A goes up, so too does our expense, but we always want to make sure that that margin is there, or is solid. So, on expenses of $488,000, the revenue was $687,000. So it gives you a little bit of sense of what you can do there, even though it's technically above your budget. So overall for the month, it was still a net loss of $48,000. I think the previous month it was about $120,000 loss. So still kind of in the red there. But just a teaser on March, right now we're looking at a positive $140,000. So March has really built a pretty strong month for us, so we put a dent into the loss there in January and February, and hopefully get us back to the black here in short order. Obviously, occupancy is a big driver of that as I talk about independent living. Right now, occupancy to date, so this is not a February number, this is as of this morning, is 79%. So that's 207 out of the 262 occupied, which is exactly where we were last month this time. So what we've got going on is a couple of move-ins, but we also have some attrition going on, so residents moving out. So we've had 5 year to date, and we know of 4 more that are in progress. So either it's because of a death and the family is working on it, or the resident has given us notice, and that they'll be moving out in short order. So 9 on the books. Our projection that our financial models are built on is off of 29. So I think we're still within line of that, but certainly something we want to continue to keep an eye on, because that can certainly erode any positive momentum on the sales side. For the first quarter, 3 closings, not great. We do have 6 deposits on the books, and then there are an additional 12 what we call hot prospects, so people that we expect to, as they work through the process, convert into deposits and then ultimately residents. So still seeing good momentum, good activity from our sales team. I think the plans that they put in place in January are starting to kind of bear fruit, especially some of the new marketing initiatives from the support center. We still have some pretty lofty goals, 48 sales for the year. That's what our financials models are built off of. So we've got a hill to climb here, but certainly not hitting the panic button, feeling that we've got some good momentum in that area. I know there's been a lot of questions. What's sales up to? What are they doing? What are they working on? How can I help? I know some of you have participated in the monthly kind of marketing alliance meetings. That's the last Thursday of every month here in the Longwood Room at 1. The sales team, the whole team, not just Stephanie, but all the counselors and move-in coordinators and assistants there, just to discuss what we're working on, get your thoughts on that. It's not meant to just be us talking at you. If you have ideas or if you have observations, we want to hear from you. when it comes to sales, it's a very metric-driven department. One of the things we look at is the time in the selling zone, the activities that those team members are doing. Are those fruitful activities? Are those meaningful to cultivating a prospect that would ultimately lead them to becoming a resident? So what that means, though, is activities that aren't necessarily sales or time in the selling zone. I watch that and I try to minimize that as much as possible. So I know there's been some requests to get the sales team into building meetings and various other meetings. This is kind of that opportunity to have that on a frequent basis. So I do kind of guard their time a little bit, and especially as that focus and pressure on sales is there, I'm being a little bit more stingier with their time. So don't be mad at them if they say no, it's probably my fault. But do let me know if there's something that you need from an information perspective, but do invite you to join them at this Alliance meeting. Team member updates. So Xavier continues to hold down that interim position in housekeeping. We are expecting to finalize that. That's been posted about a week or two now, and Jose has been working through the interview process, so hope to have some good news for you on that front. We are still recruiting for a sales counselor. Just kind of as a reminder, we're looking for the best person, not just a warm body, so we're not just jumping at anybody on that one. And then the health center billing specialist, this is one that's kind of gone back and forth. We're doing it, we're not doing it, well, we're back to doing it. And we're looking for that. So that's posted, and again, we're looking for the right person for that team to help us really maximize the capturing the revenue for the services that we're providing on the skilled nursing side. Sort of a team member update, sort of a service update, but it's security. So we've officially given notice to our partner, Allied Universal, who does security services for Village on the Green, that will be ending our agreement with them, and that we are going to be bringing security services in-house. So the official date is Monday, May 13th at 7 a.m. That's when officially our team will be taking over 100%. There is a supervisor position that is responsible for overseeing that. His name is Julian Silvers. He'll be joining us here April 23rd. We're still thinking maybe sooner. Trying to convince him to take his vacation before starting because we're going to work him. But he's eager to get going. Julian will be coming on site. Julian, Lenny, and Jose have been working on filling out our team. I think right now all of our full-time positions are filled up with the security officers, and they're working on the part-time officer positions. Some of the changes that are kind of being built into this, instead of a kind of a Monday through Friday officer with weekend officers, the officers are going to have either a Sunday through Thursday or a Tuesday through Saturday position. It's important to have that continuity during the week. Obviously, it's when the bulk of the directors, managers, and activities occur, and it's good to have that kind of continuity going into the weekend and the feedback coming out of the weekend saying, hey, are you guys aware of this? It also helps with, there will be, so those part-time positions are in general weekend positions, but those are folks that can flex and add hours, so as our full-time folks have vacations or illness and whatnot, we're kind of backfilling with our own part-time team members to pick up those positions. So the officers will start popping up the week of May 6th. That week is going to be kind of an overlap, so we'll have the formal orientation and training, but that's their kind of week to kind of get their bearings, walk the campus, walk the building, start to meet you, for you to see them. Allied will also be here at that same time for the week, providing those services, but it's just kind of an opportunity to make sure we hit the ground running on that following Monday. So we're working on finalizing the post orders, so that's what happens when the fire alarm goes off, what happens when PalCare goes off, what do you do when a toilet's backed up, all of that stuff. We codify into post orders for our officers, so we're working through that process right now. We're finalizing uniforms for our team. There might be a little bit of a transition period. They will be in uniform, but it might not be the final uniform that they're in when we make this transition, just given some of the lead times on getting stuff ordered and stenciled and stitched and all of that. And then we're also kind of finalizing the schedules and whatnot. So my intent is as we finalize that roster of security officers, we'll have pictures so that you'll kind of have a little bit of a heads up as to who's going to be on campus, names and pictures, so that you can have a kind of a comfort level there. And I'd certainly love to have maybe a little open house and get as many of them together as we can, so you can just get to know them in advance. Ann?
Would it be out of order to wonder what becomes of Terrell?
It's a good question. So the question was about Terrell. So Allied Universal's contract does stipulate that if we hire their team members within 6 months of the end of an agreement, we pay a buyout for each one of those team members, and it's a pretty hefty amount. However, those team members can apply for and work at Village on the Green in a non-security position. So with all of the current Allied team members, including Terrell, we've had the one-on-one conversations to say, you know, here's why, you know, it is what it is, but here are your opportunities to stay at Village on the Green. And we've also asked, you know, that they let us know if that's something they want to do, so we can facilitate that. With
So it's up to you.
It's a two-way thing, but yes, there has to be an action taken in order to kind of follow through on that. So.
Well, will we know in time if we have to say goodbye to him?
Yes, I believe it is my, as long as there's kind of that information coming back to me, yes, absolutely. Yep. If there was a situation where we were not continuing with that you'd have an opportunity to honor his service here, if that is necessary. So Julian, just tell you a little bit about Julian. Julian is coming from Westminster Winter Park.
Where's that?
I figured just get it out now, because you guys are going to hear it later. So Julian, Jose, and I, we actually went through this exact same process with Allied there. Actually at Winter Park, I took security from in-house, gave it to Allied, somehow survived a year, and then brought it back in-house, and Julian was the one to be the supervisor for that. And so he is, obviously there's a lot of uniqueness about our campus and our residents. He's familiar with the process, and I think the fact he's already cobbled together a pretty good crew of team members, of officers, I'm very optimistic. You know, there's kind of the question why. Carolyn, you would ask that in resident council. One aspect is from a service standpoint, there are things you can ask of your own team member that you can't of a vendor, especially when we start to try and take security to more of a customer service. You know, obviously there's a large safety security element to it, but also there's opportunities, I think, to have officers do some things that means better service for you, whether it's a faster response from a maintenance perspective or whatnot. Also more for like a reception, concierge, how phone calls are handled and routed, and also from a cost perspective. So this, obviously we pay for the officer's rate, but we also pay Allied an hourly rate on top for each person, and that is starting to escalate to a point where you know, I kind of took a look at it and said, for what we're paying, what are we getting? Could we do this in a little bit of a different way, a better way? And so this year, from a financial perspective, it's a wash. But given kind of the conversation I've had with Allied the next 2 or 3 years where they expect to be taking our rates to, it's going to translate to a pretty big savings. And I will say from a team member perspective, I think this is going to be a lot better. You know, currently, you know, it's probably a $3, almost maybe a $4 an hour difference going from Allied to becoming a Village on the Green team member. So our hourly rate is significantly better. And we're also offering substantial benefits, paid time off, time and a half for holidays. It's going to be a much better quality of life for those team members as well. So hopefully that means we're taking good care of our team members so that they take good care of you. Any questions about that? Yes.
Joey, are there documented procedures to admit people through the gate?
So the question is, are there documented procedures to admit people through the gate? Not to be cavalier, but it is a little willy-nilly right now. But one of the things that I think we are going to start to layer in that I think you will enjoy, even though it might give you a little bit more of a headache at times, is tighter security requirements through the gate. Jose and I have looked at some essentially identity management systems. So the experience I give, I went down to Lake Highland for a school tour, and I pulled into the parking lot, and the security officer said, "Hi, welcome, we're so glad you're here, may I have your ID?" I gave him my driver's license, they inserted it into a machine, it popped right out, she gave it back to me, it printed out a badge with my picture from my ID, but it logged all the information, right? My name, my address, when I got there, who I was claiming to see, and it verified that yes, admissions knew I was coming, and there was no, nope, it was very smooth, very transparent. So we're looking at similar systems so that theoretically, you can say, you know what, I got that crazy cousin, I don't want them here, I'm gonna put them on the list as that they can't come in, and that, our officer puts their ID through and it comes back as, oh, this is a do not admit, So we're looking to introduce those kinds of processes and also technology to be able to tighten that up. It's going to be in bits and pieces because there are, you think when you introduce a system like that, typically you issue barcodes to your residents on the cars so that when you pull up, the gate scans you, it moves in. Well, that requires 2 lanes, that requires 2 gates, that requires all the systems to support that. So we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row and come up with a plan as to how we pull all of that off without creating a very onerous, I don't need a mile-long backup at the front gate every day either. So we're trying to figure out how we do that. I'll talk a little bit later about emergency response, what we could do in the event of a fall, but it does not necessarily change what we can do from an emergency perspective, but I do think there's opportunities to improve how we communicate, in the event if something happens to you. Many of you have a spouse that's right there that can help you, but some of you don't. Some of you need to make sure that your secondary contact gets communicated with. So we want to really tighten up those processes so that you're experiencing, exactly what's going to happen in the event of an emergency, and that you have a good, strong sense of trust that it's going to happen. Because now I think sometimes it depends, if it's Daryl, you're in great hands. If it's someone from the weekend, it might be a little dicey as to what the response is going to be. So that is kind of one of those, the identity management, visitor management is one of those top things that we want to work out. And we've already had some vendors on site to tour and give us some proposals as to what they could do that would integrate with our technology. A couple things that are also going to go over to security, parking management, send that over. Right now we've got sign spots, and I don't know that we feel super confident in knowing exactly who's parked in what spot. So, Julian did quite the effort at Winter Park with almost 800 residents to sort out who's parked where, and then when someone's in your spot, what happens, and the documentation on that. When team members are parking where they're not supposed to, or aides are parking where they're not supposed to. He has a zeal for tackling that stuff. I just got to make sure he doesn't tow everybody. But there's a lot that I think is going to, the assignment of keys, and theoretically when we go to the Salto locks with the RFIDs replacing your physical key on your unit, that security management, who gets access. Right now it's all run through maintenance. They do a good job, but let's be honest, we've been here how many years and how many masters are floating around? I feel good about the masters I've assigned, but I don't know, were the other executive directors as, strict about those masters as well? I'm not sure. So I think we're going to centralize a lot of those processes in security that I think, hopefully you don't even notice, but what it means is stronger safety and security on campus once we get all that through. Sorry, long answer to your question. Building A through F window replacement, we're trucking along. A building, I think the majority is done. They're working on that first floor now. I said mid-April. I think we're probably about on track for that. Maybe the 3rd week of April, wrapping up with A building. B building windows are on order. We're just waiting an update from the manufacturer when we expect that before I start ringing the alarm bells in B building to get ready. As I learned with A building, they said it would arrive 1 week, and I think it was like 6 weeks later it actually showed up. So I have a feeling they'll probably do that to me again. Before I get you all wound up, B building residents, I kind of want to get a little bit more certainty from the manufacturer when that date will actually be. It will be the same crew. We may try and work even faster, possibly introducing a second crew or 2 units a day depending on the size, so that might be a little smoother, a little faster based on the process we've learned in A building. C building, I think we've done the verification of measurements on Monday, so that order is in. And then I think once probably B gets underway, we'll be looking at D for measurements on that. So those are the buildings that are scheduled for 2024. We are looking, E and F are technically scheduled for the first part of 25. And I think that's probably when the work gets done, but there is a price increase coming, so if we can move from an order perspective the E and F windows into this year, we can save ourselves a little bit of money. We are kind of keeping an eye on the weather. You know, June, July, August is probably a wash when you have those daily rainstorms. You know, last thing we want to do is start opening up units and then leaving them open and whatnot. So I imagine there's going to be a little bit of a hiatus before we start up again in the fall. And I don't know if we'll be able to do E and F in that kind of time frame, but we are kind of trying to move some funds around to see if we can get that scheduled. And overall, I think we've seen really good feedback from the A building residents on the process. So not too much heartburn around it. My favorite, community wireless. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I believe the vendors have now secured their permits, so we should see them starting up work again. Supposedly this week, but I don't think, have they started, Jose?
No, they'll
I
need
think
to
so.
hang up permits, and they'll be starting up again on Monday.
Monday, okay, so Monday for community wireless to get going again. They have the vendor who's doing the boring, the bidirectional boring for the villas is getting their permits and whatnot. Oh, okay, got a sneak peek. I saw some eyes perk up. I thought I had another slide. So we should see some activity on that, and I'll probably just put that through on the memo. Okay, community entryway. So the guard tower, the open air, was it the turret up there? So that's gone. Now the proposal, they love towers. So we did take the art idea of doing like a large art installation as kind of the vertical element. That was not loved so much by the project team. So they came back with, okay, if it's Village on the Green, can we do clock tower? Close it up, remove all of the kind of louvers that made it look like a guard tower, and make it a solid functional clock tower, so that, you know, from a wayfinding perspective, you can say, where's the clubhouse? Look out for the clock tower and so forth. And I said, okay, I think I can stand in front of the residents and say, hey, thoughts on clock tower? So that's kind of where we're at. The original plans with the guard tower were submitted, and we're in permitting. So the plan is, after talking to Seminole County, they said, just let this go through, and then when you solidify what your plan is, submit it as an amendment to that permit for the final design, and then we'll proceed with work there. So clock tower is where we're at. Think about that, ruminate. I know you will tell me what you think, but that's kind of where that's the comeback to, hey, all right, guard tower out, clock tower.
What's on the left of the tower?
So to the left of the tower, that's the porte cochere. So that's the structure coming out, and then the clock tower doesn't, it sits, if you're looking at the fountain out the front, it's not in the middle, it's to the left. On the left corner of the porte cochere is where this tower is. So that's why if you look kind of down below, you can see kind of the glass doors in light gray. That's kind of like seeing through to the front lobby there.
And how is time around on what basis does the time, I don't want a clock tower if 3 months from now, the clock stops working.
Or doesn't adjust?
You know, I think what they call that is a community project. So they build it, and then we got to figure out how to make it run. I think Jose committed to winding it every morning. It's a good question. I don't know how that works. I don't know. I look forward to learning about it. Yes, we'll be up here giving you the inner workings of clocks pretty soon. Some health and wellness updates. So CDC did revise their booster recommendations to say that they recommend 62 and up get a new booster. So our pharmacy is willing to do that, but there's a question of interest. So obviously we need to order an appropriate number. We don't want to order more than we need or less than we need. So the request, and you may have already taken care of this somewhere else or with your primary care physician, but if you're interested, if you let Sue know, she's keeping a tally, so then we can let the pharmacy know, hey, we got 10 people or we have 100 people, and then we can schedule appropriate number of days and times to do a booster clinic here on site in the Longwood room. So just something for you to keep in mind. Believe it or not, Wendy celebrated a year. I think it was like April 3rd. And one of the first things I tasked her with was getting ready for hurricanes. And so she's going to start that process for our new residents. She calls every person to understand, in the event of a hurricane, what are your plans in general? Obviously they can change, but are you a shelter in place? Do you know you're going off to your kids' home up in North Carolina? Do you have oxygen that we need to plan for? That we need to have backup canisters available should the power go out? Do you have a scooter that needs charged? Do you not like staying in the villa by yourself and want to camp out in the Longwood room? So those are kind of conversations Wendy has one-on-one to get a sense of what we need to plan for. Unfortunately, usually I think May is when I start doing the hurricane preparedness stuff in town hall. But just kind of looking at the preliminary forecast, I think we have La Nina this year, which means already a warm Atlantic. That warm Atlantic turns into that bathtub and a breeding ground for hurricanes. So they're expecting a more active than normal season this year. So we want to make sure we're ahead of that, have a good understanding of what your needs are, so we have plans in accordance with that. I think in a couple weeks I'm going down to South Florida communities where we do our kind of hurricane retreat, get all the Florida communities together. Obviously us being in Central Florida, we could be the recipients of evacuees from South Florida communities, so we all just get in a room, put our heads together to make sure our plans are in place. Reminder and also this is when Wendy does the updates for the red folder. This is more just a prompt of, hey, any medication changes, doctor changes, update that form in the red folder so that EMS has, quick copy. So she'll be reaching out. And I think she's going to set up some kind of open house times if you just want to come in and talk to her about that. And I'll put that in my memo once I kind of firm that up with her. Those forms are all on Touchtown. There's one you can print out and write, and there's also a form fillable one if you're tech savvy and want to type it all in and save it. You can certainly do that off of the Touchtown app as well. Massage services. Guess who got their license? Village on the Green. So we finally got our massage establishment license. We had our inspection on Monday and we passed. Cynthia Farrell, I think many of you do know her, who's been providing services in home to date, is our licensed massage therapist of record. And she's the first therapist who's going to get started providing services in the massage room down by the fitness center. Now, you've probably walked by and not even known it was there. We are working on all the nice little things, sound machines and fuzzy carpets and all of that. She and I met to do a bunch of shopping, and we'll have that kitted out here. We need our physical license mailed to us, which could be 1 to 2 weeks. But so really once we have that and all the other stuff in, Cynthia's gonna get started offering services. So I will say we were working with Cynthia. She has other therapists who are interested in providing services, but we're gonna start with Cynthia. I think she's looking at 2 days a week. It's gonna be booked through Cynthia, paid through Cynthia. Village on the Green's not getting involved in all of that. I'm just the space, right? Keep it clean, keep it nice, keep it available, and let the therapists do their thing. So we're working on some flyers to start sharing with you what services she's gonna provide, what those services entail, but just want you to be aware, hopefully 3 weeks, we're talking about actual services and whatnot. I think she wants to come in and maybe do a session as well, just to get you familiar with what it is if it's something you're not familiar with. Basil had asked me to touch on falls and independent living, so trying to address maybe some confusion around that. So if you fall in independent living, in your home, in a clubhouse, or whatever, team members are directed not to lift you up. Okay, you need to be assessed by a medical professional for injury before that happens, and that needs to be emergency services. Okay, I know in the past, people used to just get lifted right back up and put into a chair and off you go. The risk that poses if you're not appropriately assessed, and let's say you fall, you hurt your hip, but you think you can get up, you could have a hairline fracture. And when that team member goes and picks you up and maybe doesn't do it the right way and twists you, that hairline fracture now becomes an open one and hits a vein, hits an artery, and now we got serious problems. We want EMS to do that evaluation. There's no charge. We call them, they come out, they assess you. You think it's a big hubbub, you just need that lift up, they're gonna pick you up, put you in the chair, and off you go, right? There's no charge for that. If they say, look, we're worried about you, you need to go to the hospital, we need to transport you, that's where that charge comes in. Second, they put you in that ambulance, that's one expensive Uber to the hospital, okay? We are in communication with our emergency providers. We know they don't like being called to pick people up all the time, but we also have an understanding like that is pretty much the standard operating procedure for any senior living facility. Do not lift someone who has fallen. That is not to say that, you fell, you just need a minute on the ground to gather your senses, make sure everything's okay. You want them to bring a chair to you so that you can kind of get on your knees and pull yourself up. They can absolutely do that. But it's just hey, just lift me up and put me in the chair is something that, whether it's our security team, they can't do that. That's not something from a risk perspective we're willing to go down that path. Questions about that? Did that address okay. The survey, it is live. So by now you should have received a flyer with your resident ID on it. If you didn't, feel free to see me or anybody in Lifestyles and we'll get you that information. 2 ways to do this. So one is to call the 1-800 number. There are specific days and times that is staffed by an independent vendor who will ask you the questions, record your answers. And you can also do it yourself online. There's a website, and I know many of you are now familiar with the QR code after I showed you in the, if you wanted to scan this, you can scan that and it'll take you right to that. So here's my plug. The survey is an evaluation of Village on the Green and the people who work here. It is not viewed from LifeSpace's perspective as an evaluation on your feelings of LifeSpace as an organization. Your comments on that are welcome. However, I ask that you type that into whatever field you feel it's appropriate, but there's a lot of boxes where you can type about how you feel about LifeSpace. When you score us, think about Village on the Green. And I'm not saying, you have to give us a good score. If you're dissatisfied, please, by all means, mark that. But, if you think, especially the NPS question, which says, I would recommend this community, You may say, I would recommend the community, but not life space. What you're grading is the community. Now, you may also say, nope, I don't recommend the community, perfectly understand. But there's a nuance to the NPS. So the majority of the questions are going to ask you that strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. But NPS is on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, if you score a 9 or a 10, what that, from the scientific perspective, the survey methodology, a 9 or a 10 says, if I were asked, would you recommend this? I'd say, yeah, you should move here, you should look at it. It's a great place, I'm happy, it's got issues, but yeah, I would recommend it. That's a 9 or a 10. A 7 or an 8, if you were asked that same question, you would neither say yes, or you'd neither say no. 0 through 6 is all the same thing. It is no, okay? So I know in some cases, like when I get my car service and they're like, please, I need a 10, I need a 10, I need a 10. I'm starting to understand why they want a 10. It needs a 9 or a 10. Would I, yes, go to Jiffy Lube. Or if I say 7 or 8, I think 8, 80%, that's pretty good. That's a recommendation, not from the survey's methodology. And this is only for the NPS score. I think maybe there's two NPS questions on here that use this scale. So when we talk about the NPS score, how we get that, you take the percentage of promoters, so the number of people that scored a 9 or a 10, and then you subtract the detractors. Anybody who scored a 0 through a 6. And that's your NPS score. So your NPS score could be, at worst, a negative 100, everybody's a detractor, or at best, a positive 100, everybody is a promoter. Our organization, the life space goal is for a 50. We were at a 40 last survey, okay? So I'm not trying to coach to the exam, I'm not allowed to do that, but I feel like if I empower you, if you're sitting there saying, you know what, an 8 should be a promoter, a 9 or a 10 is a promoter. And hopefully this gives you something to color your opinion with. All comments are welcome. We get every single comment is read. And then I want to know what's going well so we don't screw it up. What you want to see done better. Basically, how can I improve your experience as a resident? Okay, these comments go towards creating our action plans. And obviously they take the data and synthesize and say you need to work on culinary or you need to work this, that, or the other. But the more specific you can be in the comments, I'm very appreciative because strongly agree, disagree doesn't give you necessarily that color on what part of that program is going well and what part needs to be improved. So I know many of you tell me what you think and I really appreciate that. But if there's something that the more specific you can be, the more helpful it is for me as we wade through all of this. Any questions about that? Okay, so this year also a little bit different tact from our part. I heard from many, the mimosa parties, trying to do, wrangle up the surveys didn't necessarily sit well with some folks. So we're saying, okay, let's sit back and, we'll put it in your report, give you the information, try it this way. I do want to see good participation. So next week I might start pushing you a little bit more. It's open through the 19th and all I can see is percentage. I can't see who did it, who didn't do it. I can just see percentage. So I just want to make sure that our percentage is at least nearing what we did last year. And so if we're lagging a little bit, I might push you a little bit more. Huh?
Does life space take any look at the segments? It would seem to me that the apartment dwellers and the independent, the other buildings,
Sure.
there'd be a break there and how we might break that.
Okay. So
And the amount of response. I know several people say it's just another survey. I'm not gonna do it.
yeah. I will say in general, so the question was, does LifeSpace look at it, any kind of stratification, segmentation when doing this? So first, it is done by level of living. So they break out skilled nursing, which this year, thankfully, especially for Village Under, they are excluding the short-term stay. They're only asking the long-term stay residents, which typically is your life care resident who's moved through the continuum, to do the survey. Memory care, meaning the family members or the representative of the resident in memory care, all of assisted living, and then independent living. It does not break out villa versus apartment, unfortunately. And I think that stops because the more you stratify, the concern is you could potentially start to identify people, and they do not want that at all. They really do push the anonymity. Like at the community level, we just get a file with the results and the comments. We don't get to go play around in the systems in any which way or form. And then obviously it's broken into departments. So we try and they do a lot of, they break it down as small as they can to find those areas of opportunity, and then they pair that with the comments. And really with the comments, what's kind of neat is they've been using AI, artificial intelligence, running that through a system like ChatGPT and saying, all right, here's 50,000 comments at Village on the Green, identify the themes, identify, basically remove some of the one-off issues and find and group it by culinary, group it by department or whatnot. So we're getting a lot of good analysis out of that. And I'm not saying we'll hang our hat solely on that, but it does oftentimes identify stuff that you might miss because you're looking at it too closely, or you're feeling emotional or taking something personal when you're reading it. So they do try and break it down as much as they can.
It's primarily a tool then for life.
It's so what it essentially it is the support center's evaluation of the community. Now I know you may think, oh, I'm great in LifeSpace, but that's kind of the nuance I make. Is really LifeSpace looks at it and goes, how do the residents feel about Village on the Green?
Could you give an example of some current issues? Could you please give an example of some current issues that are life space issues that people might think are Village on the Green issues?
So I back into that a little bit by saying, how can I, Joey, improve your experience? So if some of the concerns Basil's identified with the audits from previous years not being certified, I can't fix that. That's a Nick Harshfield CFO issue. That may still color your opinion of Village on the Green, and I certainly understand that. But if you hammer me on that, my action plan is going to be send email to Nick and say please. And I don't want to lose the opportunity, because I'm sure you've got very valuable feedback about life specifically here. So I almost like the answer is, who do you expect to fix it? And if it's me, I want to hear it. But if the answer kind of gets to like it's a support center ownership of the resolution, that unfortunately gets lost in this survey. Yes.
I guess what I'm asking is, which items are support center items, like obviously fee increases or the 25% dining surcharge, those things are life space policies?
Yes, I would say those are enterprise-wide. I don't know that I have a good way of kind of blanketly saying which ones are the support center. So that might be to my detriment a little bit. But yes, I would say if it's a programmatic policy, those are typically from the support center. Yeah. Sorry, not a great answer. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Jerry, I just would follow up with that, because I was sitting here, this would be our first survey for us, and it's like, how do you separate out? Because what life space decisions, even though we as a community have done an incredible job of gathering information and providing feedback, they still will color, our experience here.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is just the hardest part for me to decide, or I haven't done the survey, obviously, and listen, to find out how I would answer those questions, because, I could imagine being with better people. And thank goodness life space has nothing to do with that, except it does, it's helped provide this community. I don't want to say that, but it's just how we find it, because those nuances obviously become very important in the final survey.
Absolutely, and I think it's, I mean, hopefully not unfair of me to ask you to try and make that evaluation, but, you know, more and more I'm seeing, you know, as we coalesce around the idea of metric-driven management, you know, assessing an executive director's efficacy based on NPS, clearly for me, I have a interest in at least saying, listen, I'm not gonna carry the baggage of the sports center right now if I don't need to. I'll own my stuff. So as much, I trust your judgment in that, and certainly if you had a question about something specifically, I'd be happy to answer that question, not guide you in any way, just give you information so that you can make a better assessment. So if there's an issue particularly, you want to understand where that ownership is, I 100% own my stuff, and I'll tell you that. So I'm happy to give you that information of what I own and what might reside somewhere else. Sure, Ron?
Do you have any idea how long MySpace has been using this tool?
How long has Lightspace using this tool? I'm not sure, actually. I think it's been a while. I do know that the NPS metric has been around for some time and actually comes not from senior living, but from outside. I think it's something that's used in more of a commercial setting, everything from restaurants to accounting firms. But it,
Retail.
Retail, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting take. I mean, it's more a little bit more gets into the philosophy of it. The last organization I used, I worked with, used a survey called Hollerin. Hollerin is a senior living centric survey, but Hollerin only compares you to other senior living providers. And I think, you know, you'll hear a lot from Jesse about best in class is not just who's doing well in senior living, but who truly does give an excellent customer service experience. That's who you need to peg yourself against. You know, so I'm not saying we're Ritz-Carlton, but if that's what you're trying to do, if no senior living providers are giving that, then you're missing the mark on potentially trying to truly elevate your services. So, you know, they are consistent. You know, they're consistent in use of NPS and analysis, and you know, they've got folks up in the sports center that can slice and dice this a million different ways. And they'll narrow exactly where we lost ground, where we gained ground, and then they try and tie that back to, okay, what were the specific actions we took at the community that resulted in that drop, or that resulted in that gain, and can we replicate that elsewhere? So they have a pretty good methodology around it, but it's a good question to say, why NPS? Stan?
I really hate to ask the question or raise it, but culinary is a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what comes down guidance from Lightspace and Unidine, and what is in-house generated policy?
I think culinary is actually a little bit easier to identify those issues. So like the 25% markup on guests, that's an enterprise-wide policy. That's not a community level. Community level issue, you and I have talked about offering the Palm Court menu in the bar. That's a culinary thing. So if you had comments about that, by all means, you know, rank us, rate us, give those comments on that. But the 25%, you can certainly mention it in the comments, but from a community perspective, I'm not going to be able to change that unilaterally without a broader enterprise-wide policy change. The move to points, that's a enterprise-wide initiative. It's not a community initiative. But if you had took exception with how it was rolled out, that's a community thing. So the communication was poor, not enough sessions, by all means, have at it. But I can't make it go away.
No, that's not a good answer.
Other questions? Okay. So our next meeting, May 8th, right here. And I will turn it back to Basil.
Well, not entirely, Joey. Not entirely. At At the last meeting, council meeting we had last Thursday, which you missed, ended up in sending a memo on. I think that what we've just discussed here, it makes that exactly the first thing to talk to at this point. So I'll kind of gonna move a little bit through this. I won't go the other way. Okay, I'm gonna move down to the, we've taken care of the falls, he did that, Joey did that. But we had, as a result of that meeting, we published minutes that come out basically the weekend after the council meeting. Associated with those minutes, we had a memo that dealt with a bunch of culinary items. And the reason for that was that our meeting, after the dust settled and we adjourned the meeting, I realized that an awful lot of the comments from committee chairs, from representatives of buildings and buildings and the villas came in that culinary issue. We do have, I think, a substantial issue with the culinary. And some of it, like the 25%, is not to be dealt with here. It's a corporate decision. Does that mean it can't be dealt with? No. It just means that you can argue all day with Joey and put the best case in front of him, but if you want to deal with that issue and challenge it, you're going to have to challenge it on a corporate basis. Other things like who can eat, and Joy's identified them already for you, a couple of them, can be locally dealt with. But the very first thing we're going to have to do with that memo is sit down and define, where's the locus of authority. The locus of authority for the 25% is obviously at the corporate office. We don't call it that anymore, we call it the service center, right? The service center has that. So we're gonna have to move out on that. I haven't had time to do anything with that. I don't know about Joey, but the very first thing that'll happen is to say, bring the parties together that can deal with it. In some cases, we got committees. I can think of at least 3 committees that could be involved in it. Healthcare, because some of the issues are to do with the Oaks. Some of the issues are with the who can eat what in the Heron, for example. That's probably local. So we're going to be all over, and that will take some time to digest some of the things that are really right now dissatisfiers here with regard to the culinary. And we've been through a lot. I took yesterday afternoon, just as an anecdotal thing, and I went to see the servers. and because I really developed a little relationship with them since they're all been here now about a year and a half. I think some have been here almost 2 years. And so I said, well, how's your job been? I got a great job. And of course they give me the yes answer. Oh yeah, I said, I really think you got a very difficult job. I think your job has to be challenging these days, because all the issues that are in the memo, and that's available to you, anybody can have a copy of the memo I sent Joy, it's part of the minutes, are things like menus that Sunday morning we had one menu here and one menu here, and it was, obviously we had a problem with the menus. So, and that falls down because the face to the public in our dining rooms, the face to the public are these servers. So you can imagine that sometimes they're pretty frustrated. So all I was doing was saying, you're the point of the spear. To use the military language, the server is the point of the spear for the culinary department, as the people that face the table. And so they can't help but being a little challenged by that job. But I did point out at the same time, I said, Village on the Green traditionally has loved these high school servers. And this year is there's no question in my mind, because we had a number of donations that have been specially designed. This is the best donation year since I've been associated with Brady Wilkins. That's something to say, is it not? So I just was trying to balance that. You may be in a tough position, you may be frustrated at times, but basically that crowd you're serving really is on your side. So let's do the best to bring it together. So I don't know whether that's helpful or not, but I think it is a relational issue, not only with our folks here, but also with the employees, with the team that we interact with. Joey,
yeah, thank you. So kind of what I envision in terms of responding to the memo is saying, okay, you know, based on the items that were laid out, here's what is an enterprise-wide kind of decision and what I intend to do with your, you know, expressed dissatisfaction, and also like what you can do as well. So not just to say it's corporate, I can't help you, but kind of where realistically the path forward is. And then with the kind of stuff that the community owns, menu changes, what's being served where, say, okay, here's what our position is on it, or here's what our rationale was, and then, you know, what body, be it culinary committee or healthcare, can be that avenue for residents to give that, you know, input on crafting that. So that's kind of, I'll respond formally to you on that, and then, you know, kind of keep that back and forth going, if that makes sense.
I think it's a good example of the challenge of most of the committee work, and just to relate it to probably our biggest in-process unit, that's our letter to the life space communities, the letter of the 13 March. That letter was specifically crafted to work with these 651 issues. There are a lot of other things that could have been in that letter, but the thing that we have in common with all of the units that are life space units in Southern Florida is the 651 chapter, which defines what kind of reports we get and what kind of notice we get of fee increases and things of that nature. So sometimes we have to really tailor what it is we want to do to talk to the particular parties that we need to address. And I think that's what Joey's saying. That's at least the way I feel about it. So what we do with that memo will probably be some kind of a collage of different approaches. I'm glad to have the opportunity to do that, because I think it's really important for us. Now, I have two other items that I'm going to kind of jiggle my schedule here. I'm trying to showcase committees that do great things here for us. And the reason for that is we're already in the second quarter of this year. 2024 is 1/4 over. Times go fast. And in the fall of the year, we'll have elections. And we've got a lot of new people here at Village on the Green. A lot of talent has walked through the doors here. People that really have a lot of, are gifted and do a lot for us. And so the idea is, if we identify who does what here, perhaps they'll be attracted, new residents will be attracted to participate in some of those things, so that we maybe have a lineup of people fighting and challenging each other to get elected to be a villa rep or a building rep or whatever it is, because they do a service around here. This is an example. This morning I just got a few charts from Arlene Gus about the culinary committee, and so I'll just give you that very quickly, because I think the greater civics lesson that we've got this morning is where we ended up with Joey's talk and this culinary meeting itself. So we do have a few things. What does the culinary committee do? Well, this charter is, it's a committee of the resident council. Now, the resident council is all advisory. Some people get hung up on who's really in charge and who gets the final say. We don't. I'll put it that way, okay? But we can influence what happens. But we're basically advisory in the end. Okay? Next thing. What do they deal with? They deal with menus. You heard that one before. You talked about it Sunday. Food, beverages, dining room service, and special events. Who's the representation? Everybody that's in a villa, everybody that's in a building here has one representative on that culinary committee. So if you got a culinary issue, you've got somebody in your building that is your entree into that. Okay, what are they proud of? Well, they're proud of a dress code. I'm not sure what that is, but anyhow, we do have a dress code. The evaluations, we've probably got more evaluations of our meals than we've ever had, and at least in my time here. Soup and salad you can get now in the Heron as a result of their activities, and the rest of the things on that list. Helpful hints, remember Steve Gus, on the other half of the Gus Empire. talk to us about how you can get good service out of the plant people, out of the maintenance people. And so this has a familiar ring to me. How do you do that? Well, positive remarks help. You know, we just had a terrific experience with this pressure treatment of the unit. I didn't really realize how light it was outside until they washed the windows. It's wonderful. If the item's not right, send it back. You know, you don't have to eat it just because it's sitting in front of you. You can send it back and get another something. And finally, fill out the evaluation cards. That's all I'm going to say about culinary, but I'm saying it's probably the most popular thing. You know, they always point out that the only thing we all do for sure here is eat. And so that's our common experience. So it's a great committee. Okay, and I don't want you to forget the sports committee, because that's April 19th, and sports committee is putting on this thing this year. The Brady Wilkins guys are helping out with that to get it resuscitated, so hopefully we'll see everybody. Now, the one that's not up there is one that's not up there, and that's that we had a breach of what somebody identified as a security of data. Now, Stan Goldstein has a committee he calls Electronic Communications, I think. And we'll let Stan say a word or so about that breach, because you can't say, it's like the information on fall. We can't hear it often enough to make sure we do the right thing. Stan, you got a minute?
Good morning. If I had only known I could have had a 50 slide PowerPoint for you, but let's try and make it quick and dirty. There is a chance for communication breaches. The very basic one is if you're getting a telephone call that you don't know, don't answer. If you've got an email and you're not sure, don't answer it. And check out who has actually sent an email to you. We are soon to be getting a new campus-wide system with an internet that will be a Wi-Fi signal that will be available on campus. I commend to you to look into getting a VPN. And what's a VPN? I have the definition here. But you sign up for a VPN. If you have Norton, you may already have a free one. What the VPN will allow you to do, it will lie to the system, encrypt your own messages, so they won't know where you are. I have the problem that the system has assigned me to Miami, and so when I try to get to Uber, I have a little bit of problems, and when I'm looking for a local pizza parlor, they give me the Miami ones. That's the only problem with the VPN, but it allows you to change where you're sending your message from. So I would look into that. And it also, in a way, if you wish to correspond with Europe, you can watch European channels because you can say you're from Europe. You can also get cheaper prices sometimes because they check your zip code if you're just using the same one. Basically, what the committee wants to do is, I want to promote the use of computers and other devices and our TVs, and then try and provide info to you on how to best use them. If you've got a question, the quickest and dirtiest way to find out an answer, go to YouTube and type the question in. There will be numerous answers. Some of them may not be legible because they're from India, but you will find that you have a question. And if you don't find it there, you can ask, just type the question in. You have Philip, you could ask it if you want. If you run into something, ask me a question. But if you ask me a question and I probably won't know it, I will go to YouTube to get back to you. How many of the people here have what I call non-Apple phones? In other words, the majority are using Apple devices. Okay, here's my quick and dirty on Apple devices. If you have an Apple device, a watch or a phone, put your credit card on it. When you go to a store, it is the safest way that you can make a transaction. The code disappears immediately after it happens. There's no safer way to make a purchase in a store. And also, with regards to safety, sign up for two-factor sign-ins. Not only your face perhaps, but have them send a message to your iPhone and computer so you can confirm that you're doing it. I think our last one is a bit of an advertisement. I want you to think about the TV channels that you're getting now. Are you happy with them? Okay, there's always a no. Let me just say, from my own instance, that I've never seen a better selection of channels. Remember this, they're free currently. I don't know what's going to happen when the new system comes in, but you may find yourselves inheriting bills of up to over $100 a month to get the channels you want. So we may get a chance to raise our voice, we may not. But think about it. And if you're unhappy with the channels, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'll ask you later what it is. But anyway, if there are any questions, get back to me. If anybody wants to be on the committee, right now I'm a committee of one. I get Gary to come in and tap dance for you with iPhones and iWatches once a month. But we're here to try and help you get the most out of your devices the best way we can. Thank you.
Stan is such a retiring person, you wouldn't know that he really equipped this thing along with the Lifespace Foundation with Kindles, right? Kindle. So everybody got a Kindle for 25 bucks, Kindle Fire, a few years back. So he's done some really good things in the computer business, and not the least of which is bringing Gary Becker here to teach us every so often. Thank you, Stan. And if you want to join him, he's a great committee chair. All right, just a few more items. Well, that really does kind of overwhelm my individual schedule. Are there any questions or any things to be brought before the all-resident meeting? Yes?
Basil, and it's not even a question, it's just a reminder that tomorrow is a big day in the fitness center where we have an opportunity to support research and even a possibility of getting a new step machine. I thought the only way it would count is if we were using that machine, and I'm not very good at it at all. But we heard from Treva yesterday that if you walk, and have a pedometer and you can show her the steps, she can translate those to be an all-campus step. If you use a treadmill, so any kind of exercise practically that we can do tomorrow collectively and show Treva, will have a chance to put in great numbers for Village on the Green and maybe earn a machine as well as some great press.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I went to see Treva yesterday myself, and she told me the same thing. Show up tomorrow morning, and we'll take advantage of your morning walk count. So whatever you're doing tomorrow, see Treva.
Tune in your steps by 4 o'clock. Sorry to interrupt.
It's 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, it's open till 4. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, let's declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.